Hello and welcome to another episode of Grange TV. We have with us Mr. David Roberts, DJ and musical extraordinaire. Robert Whittaker, UFC middleweight champion, all-round good guy, and very, very special guest, Mr. Pat Farmer, former federal member of parliament, motivational speaker, and ultra endurance runner.
Thanks, mate. That's nice. Sounds good when you say it like that.
Mate, I think once we get the stories kicking, I don't think my introduction will have done you justice, to be honest with you. So yeah, I don't know. Do you want to kick anything off, Rob?
Yeah, I've been itching to ask some questions, mate. And it's about running. Funny enough, I have experimented with running in the past, and I guess the biggest thing is like, how do you run for so long? Like, it's hard.
Yeah, but Rob, you would know it's all about having a goal and then working towards that goal. It doesn't matter what sport you play. Once you get to that elite level, we're all the same. You know, we're all. We all have our unique techniques that we need for our particular sports, but the drive mechanism, you go from being a normal person in the street through to your game face and your game position. So that comes down to the dream and what you're trying to achieve, in your case with a particular fight, my case with a particular race or a run. And even if that is a long way away, I still focus on the finish line. I still imagine it in my mind. I still imagine myself in a successful position crossing that finish line and thousands of people cheering me. The reality is often there's not that many people around, and often it's not as glamorous as what I have in my mind, but that doesn't matter. What matters is you hang on to the dream, you go for the dream, and the dream helps you to achieve the reality that you're after.
I've got to ask, so with endurance running, that's obviously great distances, correct? How would you train for like, what would a training session
before? In fairness, for people that don't know, the distances we're talking about is not 3 laps of Kirui Oval. We're talking about, so Pat,
so cross country, yes, so cross country. So
North Pole to South Pole.
Yeah, so it's like I go
the whole distance around Australia.
I'll go to a school and I speak to the school kids, and I say to them, okay, kids, put your hands up. How many of you have do cross country? And they all put their hands up. You know, they do school cross country. I go, what country do you cross? And they all put their hands down. And then I say, well, like I've run the length of Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Palestine. Run the length of Vietnam from Chinese border right down the southernmost point, a little place called Nam Can. I did that for the International Red Cross for clean water projects in their country. The other one was to try and get a message of peace through to the people in that country and try and help Westerners understand the Middle East a little bit better and understand
What year did you do that?
So I've been running now for more than 35 years.
But what year did you run through the Middle East?
So the Middle East was just before the ISIS crisis, just before Syria. In fact, I wasn't allowed. I was supposed to go into Syria, and I wasn't allowed to go in Syria. It was just when that whole thing was beginning, and the refugees started coming over the border from there. So they shut off all the borders. So that was 4 or 5 years ago now. So and then just a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago, I ran the length of India from Kanyakumari, southernmost point, a little pointy bit down the bottom, and into Maldives. So from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, so right up to the base of the Himalayan mountains.
That would have been fun.
And that was about 4,700 Ks. I've also run, as you mentioned, briefly mentioned, through the Americas, from the North Pole to South Pole. So getting back to your question about, how do you train for something like that? Well, I used to live out in Campbelltown. People would see me dragging tyres up and down the hills out the back of Kentland and around the streets and that sort of thing. I'd be dragging tyres, and I started off with 1 tyre and ended up with 3 tyres to try and simulate dragging a sled along. Because when I went through the North Pole, after I was dropped off by Russian helicopter, I had to drag a sled with my gear in it, all of my gear to sustain me, which weighed 100 kilograms. I had to drag it from there through to Canada. So it was approximately 850 kilometres. But the Earth at that part of the world is moving, the ice cube that floats on the ocean is moving all the time. So the distance is 850 kilometres, but the field that I'm running on is moving all the time, so you end up doing a hell of a lot more distance than that. So it took 39 days to get across there and get out of
Were
that
there
place.
roads, or did you have to use the snow boots, like the?
No. I use snowshoes. I use snowshoes with the claw on them. I had to watch out for polar bears and everything up there wants to eat you.
Did you see polar bears?
Well, yeah, I did. But you have to go through just at the end of winter. If you go through too far into the new season, then the polar bears, all the young ones are out, and the mothers are hungry as can be, and it's very they'll eat you. Yeah. I mean, everything's trying to survive up there. So me dragging a sled is easy prey for a polar bear. So it was incredibly cold. Temperatures got down to minus 40, minus 45 degrees, which just to give you, all of your viewers a bit of an idea of what that's all about. The freezer where the chickens are kept in the supermarket is minus 7. So minus 45 degrees. I walk past the supermarket when I'm doing my grocery shopping, and I pat the chickens and say, "Don't worry, fellas, you'll be all right. It's not that cold in there."
Jeez. But
sorry, I digress.
No. So how would you have a crew with you, like ghosting you?
Yeah, I had a guide. I had a guide with me. That particular run, I had a guide who was an experienced in that part of the world, both at both poles, the North Pole and the South Pole, and I had a cameraman who was also experienced in that part of the world. And it's most important with these things that you get the best possible people around you, just like you would have. You've got your trainer, you've got your team around you. Yeah, I need somebody like that. But we needed a cameraman because I had a contract with Channel 9 at the time, and we promised them that we would relay back film footage, which in itself was a nightmare, because it meant that we would set up a tent at the end of the day. I'd set up a tent at the end of the day, and I'd put out some solar panels on the outside of the tent because it's 24-hour sunlight there. And then I'd plug those into a computer, and we'd try and download 60 seconds worth of footage for the Channel 9 for the Today Show the next morning. And my contract I had to do that at least once or twice a week, and that would take all night, like almost 8 hours to download just 60 seconds because of where we were, the satellites coming in and going out, and of course the extreme cold. So trying to keep batteries charged in that cold environment. That's why solar batteries work so well. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but at the end of the day it was about dragging a damn sled that weighed 100 kilos. I only weighed 49 kilos by the time I came off the ice and I hit Canada.
How heavy are you normally?
So my race weight is 61 kilos. When I'm 61 kilos I'm fast. But my weight going into that was 75 kilos, so I lost a lot of weight, even though I was trying to survive up there by eating as much as I possibly could. But the food I ate was dehydrated food that you would melt snow and ice in, add the water from the snow and ice to it, and then you were able to have that. And then of course on top of that, then I survived on just olive oil and noodles, so and the noodles were dry noodles that you would just crunch away on. Yeah, so I lost. Well, the olive oil doesn't freeze up very much, and it's high in fat content. So it's about getting that fat back into your body. So most of the creatures up there, the seals, the polar bears, and all, are covered. Their body's covered with a layer of fat, and then they got skin over the top. Well, when you lose a lot of weight, you lose that fat content first, so the extremities of the cold really set in bad. And just to give you an idea, it's like a blowtorch. It's that cold, it burns. So you need to make sure you're completely covered. So it's 3 lots of gloves, 3 lots of clothing, thermal underwear, all the rest of it, balaclavas, the whole deal. And then you try and drag a sled in that thing and try and drag a sled through. And it's not like a snow trip where you're just dragging along nice flat snow. It's like a junkyard up there because the ice is smashing into other icebergs, and it's reforming. It's like a junkyard of ice all the time. It's melting and reforming.
I imagine the Arctic Circle will be similar, but I know because you went all the way to
well, that was the Arctic Circle, but the South Pole is easier.
The wind is crazy too down there, isn't it?
The 100 km/h winds most of the time.
Down south.
Yeah, and north.
Yeah.
And north, yeah. So those extremities of the planet are just off the Richter scale. And that's why it was such an amazing feat.
Would you, like, by the sound of things, like the goal was to run, but it sounds like you'd be almost slogging it through half
You're not
the
impressed
time.
that he didn't run, eh?
No, the goal was to survive. So there was areas like Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Nicaragua, where I ran like a man possessed. And I ran like an Olympic athlete would run, because I needed to make up time. So I was doing 100, 110, 120k a day, back to back, to try and make up for shortfalls of time that I'd lost up in the North Pole. Yeah, so that's day after day. There was no days off on this journey, by the way. Even when I went to the South Pole, we flew across to the South Pole from Argentina, from Ushuaia, but that flight was only a 5-hour flight, and as soon as I got off the plane, it was a Russian Antonov plane. As soon as I got off this cargo carrier, I slipped straight out the back and started my journey again. And so I would rest in every 24-hour period, but I had to run in every 24-hour period as well.
Yeah, sorry. Go.
No. Oh, well, I was just going to say, it's because that world record hasn't been ratified, because of the flights and whatnot. Like, to me, it's a world record. I take my hat off.
Well, look, I mean, to be honest with you, it's nobody's fault. I haven't bothered getting any damn thing ratified, because I like. Simpson does a run around Australia, up and down Sydney Centre Point Tower, 101,939 stairs, world vertical record. There's all these records. The athletes around the world are forever contacting me saying, we want to have an attempt at this, or we want to, we want your information because we want to try and do this, or can you tell us how to go about this, or how to go about that, or whatever, for whatever events they're doing. So they understand, they know what I'm going through. So we don't have organised bodies in the ultra scene like we do in a lot of other sports. I'm on the cusp of being an athlete adventurer, to be quite honest with you. So it's a bit of things rolled in together, and because we don't have organised bodies setting up tournaments and events and races for us, we do to some degree. But with a lot of these really like first off things, it's more like Hillary climbing Everest than it is about this is all the countries of the world come together for a festival and then competing in an event, a running event.
On that, so just like to segue, because you're saying more of an adventurer or athlete adventurer. One of the things going through places like the Middle East, sort of volatile, Central and South America, on the top of South America, areas that are like politically and like militarily volatile at the best of times. How did you organise the logistics, like with the military, with the local police? Like, because I imagine that you would have had to do that.
Well, I was very lucky. I was a successful ultra runner before I went into a political career. Then in 2001, I was asked by the Prime Minister of the country, John Howard, to run for the seat of Macarthur for a federal seat, and I ran in it and I won it. So I became a federal member for Macarthur. I became PALSEC for Education, Science and Training, Shadow Minister for Sport and Youth, and Federal Spokesperson for Western Sydney. Now, what that really meant was that gave me an entree into the ambassadors' doors of countries around the world, and that gave me the political recognition. So when I travel to these countries, I don't just travel as an athlete, I also travel as an ex-leader of the country, ex-federal politician. So that gets me a lot of cut through. So, everybody here in Australia knows how hard it is to organise a fun run. You've got to get roads shut down, you've got to get police support, and you've got to get SES on board and all the rest of it, and councils on board. So you could imagine doing that, for instance, with the pole to pole, 14 different countries, so many different jurisdictions, so many different languages, but the cut through was the political clout. So because I was doing this event, and many of the events I do are for worthwhile causes, charities, or for worthwhile organisations that are recognised worldwide, so that gave me the ability to be able to get to the leaders of those countries and say, I need your support, and the support I need is I need to be able to run on these roads, I need to be able to get through these areas, I need to be able to get through the Darien jungle. I said that to the Panamanian government, and they have a military force which is combined Panamanian and also Colombian, and they are special forces that patrol the jungle, the Darien jungle, because it's a gateway for drug runners to take drugs up into Central America from South America, and it's a very dangerous place. When I went through there in 2000,
because you're going through places that are like the kidnap capitals.
Yeah, exactly. So when I went through there and also parts of Mexico, was one of the most dangerous places in the world. But I had this military support as well.
What kind of military support are we talking
about? Well, I had
about?
19 armed soldiers go with me through the Darien jungle, and we cut our way through there with machetes. You know, and we had to stay in the thick of the jungle, because if we went out into the opening, we would have been sitting ducks. So for the terrorists, so we're in there, and we lived off the land.
Can you talk us through this?
Yeah. Well, you know, basically what happened was the Central American government combined, so that's like everyone from Mexico through to Panama, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Nicaragua. They wanted me to continue my journey, but they were worried about me going through the Darien jungle, so they said, no, we're not going to allow you to go through there. And I got in touch with our ambassador in Washington, who was next leader of the Labor Party, Kim Beazley, who was a good friend of mine from Parliament, and Kim contacted the Mexican government, said, look, this guy's come all the way from the North Pole, he has to complete this journey, any land mass, he has to go on foot. So, can you please help him some way? And they had the discussion backwards and forwards. The next morning, this truckload or 2 truckloads of army personnel showed up, and it was this specialised combined force from Colombia and from Panama, and they, like I said, they had the rifles. They're all in their army outfits, and they said, "We're your chaperones for the Darien jungle." And so from there, I ran down a dirt trail, and we said goodbye to the mainstream media and headed on into the jungle. And from there, we lived off the land for the next 5 days until I was handed over. Well, it was like we ate green bananas. Green bananas that were cooked on a fire or heated up on a fire in the evening to make them soft enough to eat. Coconut water, we would boil up water or use purification tablets for the streams and the water that was there, and so drank the water that was available to us. One of the guys, these are all experts at living off the land, so one of the guys would go to these streams, and he had a little bit of line and a little hook on it, and next thing you know, he'd catch enough fish, he'd have enough fish for us to eat. Most of the time we ate that fish raw, because we were worried about having big fires or fires at certain times, because we would be sitting ducks for people that wanted to get rid of the military. But we also had scouts on the outside of the camp whenever we'd stop to eat that were looking out for us. So
you were very much sneaking through the jungle.
Yeah, we were sneaking through the jungle. That's exactly right. So I mean, it was exciting, exhilarating. It wasn't necessarily running as such that you would picture on an athletic oval or out in a park or whatever, but it was getting from point A to point B in the fastest possible time, as safe as we possibly could under the conditions that we could, and we worked day and night to achieve that outcome. And then that was a link in the chain for the rest of the countries and the rest of the run. And that's what the whole thing is. And I've always said that my running is really just about being a link. I'm a link between people on the ground, just like you as an athlete are. You bring those audiences and those crowds through into the ring. You help them to experience the trauma, the life, the determination, the dreams that you're trying to achieve within the ring in that moment, and you're taking them along on the journey with you. And that's all of us as athletes. That's what we do. We just try and bring people along on our life journey with us. And it may be a game of cricket, it might be a game of football or soccer, or it might be fighting in a ring, or it might be running or skiing, whatever. But it's still about showing people that you can achieve your dream, that you can make something of yourself, that you can get from A to B. Sometimes even if you've got no legs, I've been inspired by people like Kurt Fearnley, and Kurt Fearnley didn't inspire me with his Olympic performances. What really hit home to me was when Kurt Fearnley did the Kokoda Trail on his hands, because he didn't have legs. And you hear all these tough men talk about how difficult the Kokoda Trail is and how muddy it is and climbing up some of these mountains. And you think about somebody doing that on their fists and moving their body along like that, and you think, my God, you know, 1 inch at a time. These guys, there's something superhuman about these people, and yet they integrate, like you do as well, integrate into a normal life, into normal family life and normal home life and normal social life. And you just get about your day like everybody else does. We do our grocery shop the same as everybody else. But you take us out of that environment and put us into a caged environment, or put us into the wilderness, and that's when we come to the forefront. That's when we draw on these inner strengths, these inner abilities, these reflexes, these all the things that we hone our skills towards with all of our training, whether it be dragging tires, whether it be punching a bag, whether it be, you know, whatever it is. And that's when we're elite. That's when we're different, and that's when people can go, there was an ordinary person just transformed themselves as soon as they stepped in the ring, like you do.
One of the big things on that, you know, when you're talking about the stuff that really draws attention to it, one of the things that I learned about you just doing was you raised your 2 children.
Yeah.
After your
my wife died when she was very young. Yeah, well, no, most people know my story. My wife died when she was quite young. I was quite young, and we had planned to do this run around Australia for the Centenary of Federation, and it was going to be my last run. I'd already raced across America from California to New York in the Trans-American Foot Race twice, and that was covered by 60 Minutes. I'd already run 4 Sydney to Melbourne races. I'd already run New Zealand and many other countries, or different places of the world, and many other races.
I just want to ask you something. It just came to my mind, and I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you used to run like in the 80s, late?
Yeah, with Cliff Young, the old Gumby shuffler.
but in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Like you used to run
through Liverpool. Yeah, because I lived
Man,
down
I
in
remember
Campbelltown.
this.
Yeah.
Because I remember,
You were probably a kid at the time.
I was a little kid, and I used to remember this guy.
Thanks for making me feel so old.
No, man, but I remember it. That's when, because we were talking about that, but then you spoke about it, and I was like, I remember the guy.
Yeah.
My dad used to say in Spanish, because we speak Spanish, he goes, ahí va ese loco corriendo, which means there's that crazy guy running.
Yeah, loco.
We used to see
I know the word loco. I hear that all over the world.
We used to see him running all the time, but like really, really far,
I would go down. Train and run for me would be from Wollongong back up Mount Ousley and back into Campbelltown. You know, so that would be.
That's training.
That would be a training run, yeah.
But you used to run in through to Liverpool as well.
Yeah.
Because I remember.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Sorry,
myself, Maury Taylor, Mark Gladwell, Dave Taylor. Yeah, it was about 4 or 5 of us. Kevin Mansell. We were all training for the old Sydney to Melbourne race, which was a great race, decent prize money, and it was a thing that put running in Australia on the map, because runners came from all over the world to compete in what was considered as the toughest foot race on earth. That was the Sydney-Melbourne Westfield run.
I remember.
Yeah, it was a great run. It was a great run.
So you were talking about that with your.
I have to jump in still. I have to. I'm sorry. You would run from Wollongong.
Yeah.
To
where? Campbelltown.
No, from Campbelltown to Wollongong and then back.
Yeah. So that would be my Sunday run.
That's your training session.
Yeah, it'd be a training session. Yeah. So it was, so you're coming back up Mount Ousley, and it was funny because myself and Dave, because the trucks would be coming up, and we used to really try and serve it up to the trucks, and we'd be in the breakdown lane, and we'd try and beat the trucks up the hill, and you were already pretty worn out from the run down and that sort of thing, but you just found something extra within yourself.
And
we were competing with the trucks, trying to race up there.
Did you ever beat the trucks?
On occasions.
Wait, for those people who don't know, like Campbelltown to Wollongong is like what, 70 k's?
Oh, look, it's about 35 k's. About 35 k's. Yeah, it's about 70-kilometre round trip.
Okay, so it's a 70-kilometre round trip.
Yeah, good training. Yes, that was my Sunday run, my hard run.
If I run for longer than 25 minutes, I hate myself, because I'm just on the road and I'm thinking and talking to myself up here, and I end up hating myself. What goes through your head when you're making these these training runs, but they're 70 kilometres.
Yeah, but it's horses for courses, because you're working to, whether it be sparring or in the events, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute rounds. So yours is explosive energy, and it's this and that. For me, my goal is a long way away, so I have to put in the hard yards and the long yards, and I have to get my mind into a zone where I'm just a machine. And I'm like those trucks I was talking about going up Mount Ousley. I'm this diesel engine, and I'm just going to be at a constant pace, and I'm going to go boom, 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 and every single step is going to be perfect. My shoulders are going to be back, the oxygen coming into my lungs with every breath is going to be the same. Inflate the balloons, which I call my lungs, to the same, to the same capacity with every single breath I take in. And so long as I stay constant and regular like that, I'm just gonna bulldoze my way through this training session and through the race as well, and through the event as well. So I'm like this diesel engine, when most athletes are like are more like a Ferrari, and it's get in, smash it, get out, get in, smash it, get out, get in, smash it, get out. And so it's just horses for courses. But somewhere along the line in the race of life, we need a bit of both. We need that speed, that dynamic speed for crisis situations. You need the fast reflexes for this or for that when it happens. But you also need to be able to go through life is a journey, and it's a long journey, and you need to go through the ups and downs of life. You need to be able to cope with the humdrum of things being regular and consistent and all the time.
But it'll be very meditative as well. Like
it is. But the funny thing about it is, the successful people in the ultra scenes, whether it be triathletes, swimmers, long distance runners, cyclists, etc., that do the long stuff, the successful people, even though these are long distances, and even though it is quite humdrum, and it is about that consistency, and it is that diesel engine, they still have a spectacular picture in their mind, which is every bit as much as powerful as a 100-metre sprint in their mind, of what the finish line will look like, or what success looks like to them. And with a lot of my runs, success wasn't what you would picture, the gold medal around your neck, or a prize purse being handed to you, or standing number one on the podium and everyone yelling out your name. Success would be going back to a hospital ward and seeing these little kids that were dying because they didn't have clean drinking water or whatever, and knowing that they were happy, they had smiles on their faces, and things were happening like that. So success is different things to different people, and that was my trophy, and that continues to be my trophy, and that continues to be my driving force, is knowing that the pain I put me through prevents somebody else from going through even greater pain.
You know what really struck me then, hit home for me just then when you were talking, was that you said that like life is the journey. There are times when you got to be that Ferrari and you got to hit the line, but then you got to also be able to come back and become the diesel and just plod along. I guess like for me, that was always the hardest part. It was like coming back and just going each day as the diesel, and just going back to normal life.
Yeah.
So it was so hard.
It is so hard, especially for people like yourself with a profile like that, because I'm on the Australian Sports Commission board, and we deal with Olympic athletes and the high and top level athletes all the time, and the hardest thing for them is to integrate into a normal life, because whether we like it or not, bills have to be paid. You have to have a roof over your head. You got to care for your loved ones. You have to, you got to be able to get from A to B. You need a normal job when you're not doing that other stuff, just to take care of those normal things. So for us, we are at our best when we're outside of the normal life and we're there competing. But when we have to come back to it, that takes a certain strength as well. And this is why it's great for your listeners and for your viewers to be able to hear these stories and see this stuff, because elite athletes still have to be ordinary people as well, and it's just as hard for an elite athlete to be an ordinary person and go about the mundane things of life as it is for an ordinary person that's used to the mundane things of life to step up to the plate and be elite at whatever it is that their challenge is in life at that particular time. And that's why that's the synergy between us both. And once we do more of this stuff and we relate more to them and they relate more to us, then we bring more people into the champions realm.
Going back to the thing we were talking about, and on that same topic, So, how old were your kids when
Well,
you had to raise them by yourself?
My life was pretty good. You know, I was working part time in the landscape construction trade, and you know, trying to make ends meet so that I could go off and do my next race. And my next race was the run around Australia for our Centenary Federation. So I was planning all of that, and then I just got a call from the police that said to me one day, Pat, where are you? And I said, I'm at Tarramurra. I'm working on a job at Tarramurra. And they said, this is Camden Police Station, and we're the detectives from there. We're coming to see you. Can you please just wait at the train station there just stand at the train station, wait there for us, and we'll be there soon. I said, why? What's it about? What's going on? And they said, look, we can't tell you. We'll be there soon. And that was the most agonising next 2 hours.
So they were ringing you from
Campbelltown,
and you were in Tarramurra.
Because what had happened was my wife was driving along Camden Valley Way. She pulled the car outside the road and she bumped into a steel fence that was there, but only just a small little bump, so it wasn't enough to cause a death. And yet she had died. And what the autopsy showed at a later date was the valve. She had a mitral valve prolapse, so she had a heart murmur. And which meant that the valve in the top of her heart just didn't sit straight all the time. And I used to put my head on her chest, and I could hear the blood flushing back out of her valve in her heart. And she was always going to get something done about it, but the doctors advised not until later on in life, not until you get older, because you don't need this operation yet. Anyway, she never got the chance to have the operation because at the age of 30, she'd only just dropped the kids off at childcare. Brooke was 2 years old and Dylan was 10 months old at Minto childcare, and she was driving because we were working hard to try and make ends meet. So even though it was only a short period of time, she was straight back. She was just starting back at work for the first week back at work, and she was working at MacArthur Credit Union. She's driving down Camden Valley Way, pulled the car over the side of the road, bumped into this fence, and just died. As simple as that. And so my life changed from the moment the police came to Tarramurra railway station where I was waiting for them, and they sat me down in the back of the car and they told me, and then they said, we need you to come and identify your wife, identify the body. And then I had to tell her father and her mother what had happened. Then I had to pick up my kids from childcare and somehow get a message through to them over the next few days, weeks and months and years that their mum was never coming home again, and that this was our life now. And that was very, 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 very difficult to do. And my wife was a very, very sensible person, very organised, and like most of our blokes, you know, I just got on with doing what I do, and worried about just trying to bring some coin home. And Lisa was organised, so she took care of bills and everything else, and running the house and everything. And so all of a sudden I had to step up to the plate as far as being a mum and a dad was concerned, which makes me have a great appreciation for what women go through, what mothers go through, because I had to do both jobs. And you know, some funny stories come out of all of that sort of scenario. Like I remember taking my daughter to swim lessons down there at the pool at Minto, and put her in the pool, and at Eaglevale, put her in the pool for swim lessons. And all of a sudden she sunk to the bottom of the floor of the pool while I was busy listening to the instructors and all the other mums around there with their kids. And then I looked down there and I dived down the bottom, I grabbed Brooke and I get her out, and she's coughing and spluttering and all sorts of things. I'd left her nappy on her because I have these disposable nappies, and it filled up with water and it weighed about a tonne, and it went straight to the bottom. So that was a no-no, which I learnt the hard way. So that, together with realising that fish fingers is not a staple food to cook kids. That was another thing I learned. That was another lesson I learnt, you know. So anyway, so I learnt the journey of how to be a good parent, but at the same time I still pursued this passion with my running. So that meant I dragged
how were you able to do it?
The kids came with me everywhere, wherever in the world I was running, whether it be in America or China, Vietnam, wherever, the kids came with me. And my mum stepped up to the plate, and my mum would come away and care for my children at a hotel, wherever it was, while I was doing the runs. And I remember I did a run in China up this mountain over there, and I won the race up this mountain. They have it once a year, and my mum was looking after the kids while I was running up this mountain. And of course, my children, they really wanted this. They saw an ice cream vending machine. They really wanted this ice cream more than anything. So I got them an ice cream thinking it was just normal vanilla ice cream. Turned out to be chickpea ice cream, which they didn't like very much.
Hummus.
Yeah, hummus ice cream.
Hummus ice cream.
And then I won this race, so the mayor wanted to put on a big feast for us. And we were in outback China, and this was years ago. So this feast turned out to be soft-shell tortoise with chopsticks in the back of the tortoise shell, which my kids freaked out when they saw. Yeah. Scorpions on a bed of rice.
Did you like tortoise?
No.
Did you like scorpions?
I didn't know. They're like fried cockroaches. and no, I haven't tried fried cockroaches, but I'd imagine they taste like so. But it was an interesting experience for my kids and for me to know and understand what things are like in other parts of the world. So we've all grown, and that's literally been my journey. As I've seen other cultures, met other interesting people, and all of this has come from sport. So as you would testify, and I say to kids, if you've got a talent, if you've got an ability, take it to the nth degree. It doesn't matter if it's playing marbles. Whatever it is, just be the best at it. And who knows, somebody might pay for you to see the world as a result of you being so good with that skill. And I'm originally a motor mechanic by trade, so to be able to see these things, do these things, visit these places, meet with kings and queens, and then that be an entree on into a political career, meet with prime ministers and presidents. I mean, that's all come from sport, and that's all come from running, and it's all come from being inspired by one little old man who ran past where I worked as a motor mechanic many years ago, Cliff Young, in the first Sydney to Melbourne race, and me just thinking to myself, well, if that little old guy can do that, maybe I can too. And I think that's really what sport's all about. It's just having a dream and then pursuing it.
And one of the things, like when we spoke the other day, when I first met you, we were talking about this actual program, like the Gracie program. And a lot of the times when you're discussing it with exactly what you said, like with people, and sometimes it's hard for people to draw that line. They go, well, what are you going to do with doing jiu-jitsu, with doing whatever? But it's really a conduit to travel, to work, to meet new people, network, and to do a whole bunch of other things. And it's funny when you just listen to people when they meet you, they just or we meet you. So people go, oh, he's Pat Farmer, he's however old, and this is what he does. And you're like, no, this is the journey. This is where I started off. I was a motor mechanic, and before I was a motor mechanic, I was just a school kid. You know what I mean?
And not a very good one either.
So it was interesting. Were you good at school?
No, I wasn't. I asked too many questions, and in those days, that wasn't a good thing. Now it is. Now it's appreciated. But in those days, it was seen as being insolent. You keep asking me dumb questions all the time. Now,
were you a naughty kid?
Well, yeah, I suppose I was. Yeah,
I
suppose I was.
No, well, yeah.
I was one of 7 kids, and you had to fight to get a decent feed at home. So I suppose I grew up with a bit of a competitive spirit. Just to survive.
Where were you in the 7?
In the middle. So I was a middle child as well. So
all types of missed
out. I was just completely missed out.
You're middle.
Your brothers and sisters, were they athletes? What did they do?
No, they all went off and did their own thing. So that's the thing about this life is, you don't have to be the same as everybody else. Everybody just does what they do to their best ability. And if we all do that, then we make an incredibly interesting world. And that's why we have so many sports, so many artists, so many business leaders, and so many interesting people. But there's one thing that brings us all together. That's our will and determination to succeed.
What was the transition like for going into politics?
Yeah, weird.
Because that looks like a rough and tumble world.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. To have the grace to be, I think there's a beautiful poem. It's called the If poem, and I encourage anybody that's listening to this or sees this to go and read that poem. It's called the If poem, and it's by Roger Kipling. And the If poem, there's a bit in there where it says, if you can have your words, so the words that you speak, twisted twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, quite often that's what politics is all about. So you say something with all the right intentions and somebody twists those words from the media or from the opposition or whatever, they twist those words and they make a trap out of those words to trap you on something, to try and get you. And that's what that happens in life to all of us. You don't have to be in politics for that to happen. It happens all the time. But you have to rise above that, and so you have all of these things happen to you, but still you endure that and you put up with that and you still press forward and you still be who you are. That's being a man. That's the sign of a man. You know, and when I say man, I mean the human race, women, men. But I think let me clarify that point, because these days of women's sport, men's sport, women, you know, equal opportunity for women, equal opportunity for men, the same amount of CEOs as women need to be men, and men, women, and blah, 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 and all the rest of it. One thing I feel about that whole situation is just be who you are and just be the best at what you do. That's all you have to do. And part of being a man, like I run this program for a number of the high schools, it's called the Boys to Men program. And it's about helping boys understand what it means to be a man. And to be a real man, it means standing up for women. It means protecting girls, protecting women. It means being a gentleman. It means caring for people. It means all of these things. But unfortunately, a lot of kids these days don't have a male figure in their life, don't have a fatherly figure to give them a little bit of rough love and shake them up a little bit and say to them, look, this is what being a man is. It's about falling over, getting knocked over, just dusting yourself off and getting back up again. It's not, you know, crying like a baby and hoping that everybody will feel sorry for you or everybody will give you everything. Sometimes you have to fight for things, and sometimes you have to fight for other people to protect them and care for them and look after them as well. That's what the Boys to Men program is, and that's all the sort of stuff that you get out of life's knocks. I got it out of politics, I got it out of running, I got it out of being an athlete, I got it out of being one in 7 kids, I got it out of my wife dying and having to raise my kids. So life teaches you all the way along if you're prepared to open up your mind and see the lessons that it's...
What do your kids do? Are they runners? Are they just curious?
No, they're not. Although they've got some ability.
I just keep pushing into this to see if anyone else runs in that family.
Yeah, no, they've definitely got some ability, but they don't. They purposely don't. In fact, my daughter Brooke sums it up very well. She says, like, she won't let me wear an athletic shirt when if I'm having dinner with her. And Brooke's now 23. She won't let me have an athletic shirt on or a shirt with my name on or something like that, because I've got oodles of those sorts of things and this sort of stuff, because she just wants me to be her dad. She wants me to come dinner and have time with her and just be her dad. She doesn't want other people coming up to us at the table and wanting to interrupt and talk to us and things like that. And so I get that, you know, I understand what that's all about, because being a dad is a gold medal performance as well, and doing that job right, it absolutely is. And we undersell that, and we undersell being a mum as well, and trying to be a parent, trying to be a good parent. And it's not an easy job, and a lot of the time, you know, you upset people, you upset yourself, you upset your kids, but you have to make boundaries and you have to do these things. And once again, it's the discipline of life. But all of these things is the sum total of who Pat Farmer the athlete is, or who Pat Farmer is. It's the athlete, it's the mechanic, it's the motivated dad, it's the desperate dad, it's everything.
How desperate was that desperate dad prevalent in the time of you trying to run, look after your kids, obviously looking like just having lost your wife at that time as well? Like, how bad did that get?
Well, you talk about desperation. Like, there's nothing more important to a father than being able to put food on the table or a roof over their kids. So you realise you got to work. But sometimes, like as an athlete, sometimes the only tools we got is this human body that we've got, with all its frailties and all its breakdowns and injuries, and we haven't got as much oxygen in our lungs as we want. We haven't got this, but we have to do with it. So that's when you dig deep and you find this determination that helps you still to win races, helps you still to finish the distance, helps you still to rise above all the knockbacks, all the falls, all the rejections for sponsorship, all the problems, because you're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for your kids and you're fighting for your life. And we are fighting for our life, you know. It's like being at the bottom of the ocean, like, or you're just sitting on the sand and the waves are above you, and you're starting to run out of air. You fight like anything to get that bit of oxygen. Well, life's like that, you know. To truly live is a struggle every single day. It's a battle every single day to make the decisions. What should I do? You know, am I going to get into trouble for doing this because I'm trying to help somebody else out by doing that? You know, or this or that. But you make the decisions on a day-to-day basis, on a circumstance-to-circumstance basis, and the sum total is the end of your life, who you are, what you stood for, and the people you affected along the way.
What was the craziest experience you've had in an actual race? Or you can go. You don't have to do one. You can tell me a few.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, like, you know, I've come across. You know, I come across a black bear that
in Canada?
wasn't too happy with me when I was up in Canada, when I was running through Canada. Yeah, and we had a standoff there for what seemed like an eternity. It was probably about 5 minutes, but I'm sure
5 minutes with a standoff for a black bear is a long time.
It was at least 30 minutes, and I was trying to figure out whether he wanted to eat me or whether he just wanted to go on his way. And I suppose he was trying to figure out whether I was there to shoot him or whether I wanted to just go on my way. And in the end, he went from stand-up position to fall back down position, and he continued going across the road.
But how did that happen? You came around a corner?
Well, what happened was, I was running. I was in a remote part up near Radisson, up in Canada.
Did you have someone with a gun or something that could?
No, my support crew I'd sent them ahead 5 kilometres. I was chasing up to them because they were like my goal to get to, and then they'd have my food and drink ready for me, and I'd have a quick sip as I ran past. Well, a quick sip of Gatorade or some coconut water or something like that, and a few nuts or something, you know, whatever, depending on where I was going through and where I was at the time of day and all. And so they were ahead. So they were. There was just nobody up there, and there was just me. And I came around this corner, and I noticed something outside of my eye, and it was this pine forest, and it was this bear, and he was just moving along towards the road that I was running along, and then he came up on the road, and as soon as he saw me, I stopped, and he stopped, and he just stood up. And they do that because they want to show they're bigger than you to scare you, and it certainly worked a treat. It was perfect.
How big is a black bear like that?
Well, when they stand up, mate, they're a hell of a lot bigger than me. So they're a hell of a lot bigger than me, and he just looked at me, and I remember all these things going through my head, you know, about Bear Grylls. You know, do I climb a tree? do I run? Do I lie on the ground? Do I play dead? You know, and because I remember watching Bear Grylls one time, and he said, you know, if it's a grizzly bear, you climb a tree. If it's a brown bear, you run or something. If it's a black bear, you lie on the ground, play dead, and he'll just move you around a bit, and that's that. But I got mixed up. I didn't know whether this was a grizzly bear, a black bear, or a brown bear.
Not all bears, like not all black bears.
They don't all look the same colour.
They're not all the same.
It turned out he was a black bear, but look, at the moment, I didn't know what the hell I was dealing with, and I was just frozen solid, and I didn't know whether to run or what. I would have eventually tried to run, but he would have caught me, and I would have. You know, who knows what would have happened? But
at 49 kilos, you would
have. Life, yeah. But life just happens. Life just happens, you know, and life just happens, and it wasn't meant to be, you know. So he just dropped down when he saw that I was no threat, and then he continued running across the road, and that was that. And
I think about that a lot of situations where it's like the bears one in particular, and like if I were to come face to face with the bear, much like yourself said, got confused, there is zero chance I would be able to recognise the different bears. And I know for certain that a bear can climb a tree. Yeah. And I know for certain that if I play dead,
you're dead.
I may as well just die. So I'm gonna make my best bet to try to outrun anything that tries to kill me. It'll
catch you, but you know they're fast.
At least you're gonna go trying.
Yeah, I'm gonna go trying. And you know, I got some pace. I got some pace on me.
Well,
over 40 meters, he might. If he doesn't want the kill, he won't chase me that very far.
Yeah.
But if he wants to kill that bad, playing dead isn't going to help. If he's willing to chase after me, he'll just.
if he caught you bar, would you play dead then?
I'll pull guard.
You pull your ball guy.
Yeah. So
Wolves? Did you encounter wolves?
Yeah. Saw wolves there.
They're scary though.
Wolves. No,
But they didn't chase you?
Yeah, they're timid, aren't they?
Unless they were.
Yeah, but if they're coming after you, they're scary.
There was a wolf that had a couple of little cubs, and it was more interested in just protecting the cubs. So yeah, this world is an amazing thing. I've seen such incredible sights. It's been places where I've actually seen the curvature of the earth. It's that clear because of the cloud mass above it. I've been to places, deserts, dry deserts, hot deserts, freezing cold deserts. All of this. And all because I decided that I would run, all because I decided that when somebody said to me, there's a chance, do you want to do this run, do you want to do this race or whatever, and I said yes, and I think that's it. A lot of people get opportunities come along their life and they don't take it and they live on regret.
Did you see the Northern Lights?
No, I didn't because you don't get the Northern Lights all the time.
Yeah, it's only certain times.
Yeah. So, and yet I've had other friends have been up in Canada and they've seen them. They haven't gone all the way up to the polar ice cap. So yeah.
When you ran through Middle East, India, jungles and all that, did you get like malaria, typhoid, any of that type of stuff?
No, it's all right, but I was pretty. Oh yeah, you get a bit of dysentery and you
bad when you're running.
I've been pretty sick sometimes, but not enough that's ever stopped me from completing the journey or doing what I had to do on that particular day to be able to survive it. Yeah.
How do you get through that? Do you get put on a drip?
Yeah. Well, I have. Well, the run in India, I got put on a drip. Yes, that's true. It was funny because I was running 80 kilometres a day.
There's nothing funny about that.
I was running 80 kilometres a day, and then my schedule was all worked out for the whole journey for 2 months of this journey before I'd started. So where I would speak at, the schools I would speak at, and there was literally thousands of people would run with me, which drove me crazy and created all sorts of traffic hazards and problems. But there were schools I had to speak, and this one particular day where I was feeling really worn out, tired, dehydrated. It was only in the second week of the journey, and so I was still acclimatising, and I was just way behind schedule, and I had to be at this school. So the police said, you've got to be at this school and blah blah blah, and they got 2,000 students there that want to talk to you, want to meet with you, and so we put the cones out on the side of the road, and I went and I spoke to. So we got into the police vehicles and they drove me up the road, and I went and spoke to the school kids, and I was halfway through speaking with them and I fainted. I just collapsed and I was really severely dehydrated, so they took me straight to the hospital, put me on a drip for the next hour, and then I got off the drip and went back to the road and where I'd left the road and continued on from that point to get the kilometres done for that day, so that I could still be on schedule for the next day. So so it was a race. It was only my race, but it was a race against myself to a large degree.
Was there any times whether it was by animal or man, that you feared for your life, or in a situation where you're like, I might not get across this?
Not really, because I've never really, I've been in situations where sometimes you've actually looked at death, but I've never been scared of dying, and I think that's one of my advantages, is because I'm not scared of death, I'm not scared of dying. I realise it's a natural progression of all of us, that we're nothing, we're created, and then we die. We live and we die, and because I accept that. Two things matter to me: what I do while I'm here on this earth, while I am alive, and then the second thing that I accept is that I will undoubtedly die one day, and so when that comes is not in my control, and so when that happens, it'll just happen. But I just get on with doing the job, and if I'm not worried about it. So I think if you can stare fear in the eye and still plow ahead, often you win more. It's like somebody doing a parachute jump or something, or somebody rock climbing or whatever, or even climbing into the ring. if you let fear overtake you, you have to have a healthy fear and understanding, so that helps you to be diligent and careful and protected. But still, if you let fear dominate your life, you'll never achieve anything.
Did you ever reach a point like like the movie Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
You seen that movie where he just stops when he goes on that long run, and then he just stops and he goes, you know what, I'm done now.
Done.
Like
Yeah,
I'm sick. I've had enough. I've ran enough.
Yeah,
Did you ever reach that point?
That's because, see, that movie Forrest Gump came out in 1994. I ran the Trans-American in 1993 and 1995, and I honestly reckon that Steven Spielberg, the Trans-American race was a famous race over there in the States, and I honestly reckon he got his inspiration for that part of the film from the Trans-American foot race. Anyway, that aside, I don't feel like Forrest did, because Forrest didn't have that goal to aim for. He was just running because he just needed to get out there and clear his head. He just needed to run because he just needed to get rid of the voices in his head. But I've always I'm running to a point. So even though that point's a long way away, it is still my finish line. So, and it's just as prevalent, just as real as a 100-metre race or an Olympic 400-metre race. You know, it's just as there, even though it may be weeks, months away from where I've started. So that's the difference, yeah, having the finish line.
In the times that you said that you did face death, which was it, the bear, the worst one, or was it?
Well, the bear was certainly a moment. There was another time in Nicaragua where I was chased by some guys with machetes, and my police escort wasn't with me. It was late in the evening. Unfortunately, that part of the world on a Sunday, the guys drink this homemade brew over there, and they drink it to a state where they end up comatose, and you'll see these people lying in the middle of the road and all over the place. You think they're dead. They're just so comatose from over drinking. And a lot of the women lock themselves away because the guys are just going mad, and it's a crazy part of the world, or it was at that point in time, and it was just weird, you know. So yeah, I got chased by these 4 or 5 guys that had machetes. I came into a crowd, and they just sort of jostled me a bit, and once again my crew was ahead at the finish for that day's journey, and the police escort had left me just prior to that because it was starting to get late, anyway, I ran into where this crowd was. It was on my pathway, and these guys started jostling me and pushing me around a bit, and everybody carries machetes over there because they use machetes to cut their way through. There's jungle on either side of the road, so everybody's just got a machete. It's just like carrying a Leatherman for them, and so consequently, you know, I kept running. They started chasing me, and they had these machetes. And luckily for me, they weren't as fast as I was. So, yeah. So yeah, there's moments like that. I don't know, different things happen in your life. You know, I got hit. I was going through Mexico, and semi-trailer smashed into my support vehicle, which was right behind me. He started waving all over the road. Came over the crest of the hill. We had police escort behind that, another police escort in front of me. And he saw the flashing lights, and he's hit the anchors, and the trailer's gone sideways, and it's smashed in my support vehicle. And then the whole truck's just toppled, and I saw this truck sliding towards me, and I could still see all the gravel and everything coming up off the road, and I've dived off the side of the road. And sometimes it's cliff face and sometimes it's a ditch, but it turned out to be just a ditch, thorn bushes and all the rest of it. So I dived into there, and the truck went, the cabin, the truck slid straight over the top of me and just kept on going for another 20 or 30 metres. And I was lying down there, and for a moment I thought I must be dead, you know. And then I sort of opened my eyes, and I was just cut to pieces from the falling, like jumping over the edge and all the thorn bushes and everything. And my crew got out of the vehicle, and the side of the vehicle was all smashed up, and nobody died, you know. Even the driver of the truck climbed out of the thing, and you know, everybody was okay, and we progressed on after that, just continued on.
Lucky
continued on
situation.
down the road. Yeah.
Fortunate accident.
Yeah, I think I sort of continued on because I was in shock a bit too, you know, and the running helped me get through that shock. So the support vehicle couldn't get through, none of the vehicles could get past it, the truck was blocking both sides of the road then, so one of my crew members, Katie, grabbed a push bike out of the back and she grabbed a backpack and put some food and drinks in there. She went on the other side of the truck and she made her way around to the other side of the truck, and then we just kept going. You know, it's funny.
Why not?
Yeah, well, you know, it was a race against time, the whole journey, so yeah. Crazy life, crazy adventures.
It sounds
crazy
like a
things,
very
but,
crazy story.
Yeah, but
journey,
you know,
I should say.
Well, Mexico is an unusual place. You know, Nicaragua is an unusual place. Costa Rica is an unusual place. The Darien Jungle is unusual. Colombia is an unusual place. You know, but I've been blessed to see these places, and like I said, you know, not just there, but the Cedars of Lebanon, Tripoli in Lebanon. You know, through the deserts of Israel. So many wonderful places on this earth, so much of a world for people to get out there and see and be a part of and explore. And that's why we should stop this bigness and have a great understanding of the people that we share the world with, and get out there and become part of it. And don't worry about the fact that you can't speak the language. You know, there's one universal thing, and that is humanity. So you just get out there and just explore, and people will welcome you.
We won't keep you too much longer. We really appreciate your time, but I just want to ask, like, what have you got coming up next? What are the big projects have you got coming up? You were just part of recently of the election now. You got any races you're doing? What's happening?
Yeah, I've been asked to contemplate and try and put together some other runs through the Middle East, some other countries in the Middle East, and try and you know, believe it or not, for a restaurateur who's looking at launching a new chain of restaurants and looking at launching some Middle Eastern cuisine with these restaurants. And he figured a great way to launch it would be if I was the thread running through these places and highlighting these places through the media to Australia. And then we had a chef at the end of the day that was preparing my meals with the local cuisine, you know. And so, yeah, I'm up for anything and everything, you know. So we might be doing that down towards the end of the year. So
can you discuss the restaurant chain or anything like that yet?
Not yet. Not at this stage.
You had me at cuisine.
What's that?
You had me at cuisine.
Yeah. Well, you know, because Lebanese food, Middle Eastern food is very, very healthy. You know, like they start off most dishes with cut carrots and hummus and tabbouleh and, you know, things like this are very, very healthy food and, you know, very good for you. So you know, so a restaurant like that would go down a treat with a lot of athletes, you know, gym junkies and people like that. You know, so instead of the cheat food being sushi, you know, it would be this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Running not so much. The food, I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah. All right. And anything else you got coming up?
Yeah, so I'm looking at that, and then life's, like I said, life's a journey. We'll just see what door opens up next. I never know what's going to happen from one week to the next. So you know, you guys came into my life just last week, and I've had the chance to be able to see what Grange TV does, and also what Gracie does, and see what you guys are all about. And I'm very impressed with the program that you run for Indigenous kids and opportunities that you're giving not just the kids, but you're giving Indigenous people. So yeah, I think it's fantastic, really fantastic, and being able to coach people to be trainers themselves, to be mentors and trainers and coaches themselves. I mean, that has a knock-on effect, a ripple effect that would influence a lot of people. So yeah, so I was just as keen as you guys were to catch up today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your journey, and I really do appreciate it. I've learned a lot. It was great to listen to.
No worries. You got to let me sit ringside one day.
Yes, sir.
Do that.
Definitely.
Okay.
We can make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.